Independent radio stations in Ghana are to take part in an innovative German-funded project designed to increase the quality of local journalism and program. The project is called R Radio. The new training project will involve 10 FM stations in 5 Ghana's region, namely the Western, Central, Northern, Upper East, and Upper West. Well, I'd like to welcome you to another wonderful moment with me, Trailblazers Africa. Today, I'll be speaking with someone who has come to represent an organization that believes so much in Africa. And that is why on this program, we look at those that really believe on the continent of Africa, how to move this continent forward. My name is Moses Owopade. My guest on the program today is the African division, the head African division of the popular DW, that we've been watching some of their activities on various television stations all over Africa. I have Carsen Von Nahmen in the house with me. I'd like to welcome you to Trailblazers Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, DW, we've heard so much, about you, what you are doing, not only in Ghana, but the rest of Africa. What exactly is the focus? What are you, really up to?
Well, generally, as a broadcaster, Deutsche Welle, DW, is up to promoting freedom of speech, providing information to people worldwide. Also, of course, giving a view of Europe, of Germany, to the world, not in the sense of presenting it in very nice colors, but what we would say is a realistic view, probably more detailed than, let's say, CNN, the BBC, Al Jazeera would do it, because we are from Germany. We are from the heart of Europe. So we look at the world from a European, from a German perspective, but we adhere to clear quality standards as far as journalism is concerned. And of course, we have a tradition, a history of providing information to countries where people don't have access to information. I mean, Deutsche Welle was founded when the Cold War was still going on. So one of our focuses was to provide information to people in the Soviet bloc who didn't have access to free information, who just had state propaganda. So we were doing that, and we're still doing that in many countries in the world, in Africa and elsewhere, where people sometimes don't have access to information. And if you look at different countries like Ethiopia, Eritrea, where we have a very, very popular Amharic language program, people really look to us because they want to have another view on certain issues happening in Ethiopia or happening in the region of East Africa. So we have about 30 language services in radio, 4 in TV, so that's what we do. We try to promote information worldwide.
Deutsche Welle has an academy.
Yes.
And the academy is championing a kind of training for African journalists in various fields. Could you let us know, for 50 years, how long you've been in existence, and you've been able to reach almost every part of the world. You've been to the Asian country, you've been to Latin America, you've been to the Middle East, Europe, and Central Asia. What is Deutsche Welle Academy?
The Academy of Deutsche Welle was set up to assist in, if you like, the goals of Deutsche Welle as a broadcaster. As a broadcaster, we provide information. Now, of course, another goal is to make people, journalists in other countries, able to provide that information themselves. So what we provide is training, is consultancy, is advice, is also co-productions where we take, for instance, in Africa, colleagues from here, and they work together with our journalists, and they put together a report which then is broadcast both at Deutsche Welle and on the partner station. So this is a joint project that we do. So again, we try to promote media freedom, but also certain quality standards of journalism, to be not biased, to be fair, to always try to get the different sides of the story. These are quality standards we try to promote.
I'm going to really probe you, when you say the word, you want to train journalists not to be biased, to be objective, because I believe that, the word objectivity he is still questioning. What is objective to you might not be objective for me. But I'll be going to that later.
I was about to start to say something about it.
I know you have an answer to that. Now, recently you signed an agreement with Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association to enter into a collaboration. Yeah. How was the signing?
Oh, the signing was very successful. We all managed to get our signatures under those agreements, and I was very, very happy that it worked out so fine because, as you said, we've been working for almost 50 years in many countries in the world, providing trainings, consultancy, and so on. But what we've done here now in Ghana is really entering a new quality or trying to achieve a new quality in what we do. Okay. We have 3 partners here. We have the local partner, the Ghanaian partner, GIBA, which is a strong network of independent stations, as you know. And then we have the GIZ, which is Germany's major development agency, with their expertise in development. And then there is Deutsche Welle with our special expertise in the field of media. And together, and with this very long-term project, which is going to go for at least 2 years, and we hope we can extend it afterwards, we will provide more than just a few training workshops. We will work on a long-term basis with the partner stations that will be selected, who have to qualify.
Yeah. And then I was, Trailblazer was at the signing. I just want our viewers to see so that they don't think, they don't say that we are just saying something in the blue. So let's go to how the signing took place, and we'll be back on Trailblazers Africa very shortly. I'll be back. And you know that DW Academy is not a new institute. And so the council looked through and, with the efforts, managed to secure the cooperation of the GIZ and the DW Academy. It is our own initiative to improve on the standards that we have. And this is not just the only initiative that you are going to deal with for now. We have very many cooperations to come, all to improve. It's all about improving the industry.
Thank you very much.
I cannot listen.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Whole long feature. Yes. Okay.
Welcome back. That was how the signing went. We just saw, the president of GIBA, Chief Jirako Krista, the CEO of Krista TV, representing, of course, the organization. That is the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association. And, of course, our gentle friend here who represents the Deutsche Welle and the Academy. And the project has now started. Now, what should Ghana, as a country, what should we expect from this?
What the Ghanaians should expect from this project?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, in the end, they will get better coverage of local events in different regions. As you mentioned, we will focus on 5 regions for a start. But if this project runs well, and we are, as I said, we're looking for the long-term approach, we will also try to extend the project to other regions. We believe that local reporting is very important because in many countries, all the news are dominated by the capitals, the commercial or political capitals. We believe that also people in other regions need to have a voice, need good journalism, need media that actually pick up the stories that are important to them, take or hold government officials or rich people accountable for their actions. So we want to promote that. And so this, hopefully when we're successful, this is what Ghana will get out of this. Better coverage of the stations that are involved in this project, reporting on events, local and regional events in their respective regions.
Now, you work with the NBC in Namibia some time ago. What would you say is your experience with African journalism, the way we practice journalism in this part of the world, comparing to how it is practiced in the Western world?
I have to tell you, now you're making a mistake that many Europeans or Westerners are making, saying that taking Africa as a whole, it's impossible. I mean, Africa is big.
Okay.
And you have so many people, even in one country, you have so many different regions, and you cannot just say, my experience in Namibia basically holds to Ghana. So that's very difficult to compare. What I can say is that African journalists in general, not all of them, but in general, are very active. They really want to get the story, and they really are fighting with very adverse situations. I mean, not always the outcome is really good if you look at it objectively. I mean, I would like to have more quality journalism in Africa. Very often it's not there because of government pressure, because of financial shortcomings, because people are not paid for doing a good job. Yeah, if I work 20 hours a day and get the same pay as someone who works just 6 and sleeps at his desk, then I won't work. But this is how it is in many ways. And still you have so many really good journalists who really try to provide a service to their listeners, to their readers, to their viewers. And that is much more than you can say of many journalists in Germany, for instance, where journalists in general are well paid, are secure, they have a justice system that works, that protects them. They have labor laws that protect them from certain behaviors of their bosses or of politicians. All that is not existent in many countries of Africa, and still they are trying to do a good job, try to be objective, try to really look for the stories. So that is something that impresses me. Not with all journalists. I mean, as always in the world, there are people who are lazy, who go for the easy solution, who do not just as much as they have to. But there are also really, really great colleagues here who really try to do a good job in very, very difficult circumstances.
Now, let me quote something that I read in your network about what you are trying to do. That the countries, the countries that you are interested in, the Deutsche Welle, the countries that have maybe some crisis, some war, and what have you. Why have you chosen areas where we have crisis? And then you said good governance. How do you pick good governance? Because if I look at the countries you are operating right now, I would say good governance. I put my question mark.
Yeah. Well, this would take a while to explain in each and every case. What we try to do is, in general, to promote media freedom and quality media. Okay. Now, in some countries where you have repressive regimes, if we work in countries where there's a very strict control from the government and no good governance, it's sometimes difficult. Still, we work in these countries as well because we think that creating a dialogue and discussing with the journalists about quality standards will, in the long run, help to improve journalism and also freedom and democracy there. A good example is our work in Northern Africa. I'm not claiming that we started the revolution there or something, but we worked there with journalists for a long time. So to a certain extent, once the repression went away, at least there were some journalists there who knew what they were doing. Of course, that was not enough, which is why we're now having a big project going on in Tunisia, in Libya, in Egypt, in Morocco and Algeria, where we try to, especially young journalists who didn't have proper training at university, to give them crash courses in the basics of journalism, so they can provide a service for their people in the upcoming elections, in election reporting. In other countries in Africa, we do this, of course, we try also to go in countries like Ghana, where you have, I'm not going to judge about the level of good governance here, but at least what you have here is a very vibrant media scene. You have a certain degree of freedom. You have a very vibrant political scene, maybe sometimes too vibrant for some tastes. But at least there is political competition. There are different opinions which can be voiced in the media. And also there, we want to support that. We're not saying, okay, Ghana's fine. They don't need any more cooperation or support. No, we say, no, especially because they are on a good path and on a good way, we will continue to support them. So it's both. You know, where we have a chance, we will support this, and where it's difficult, we will still not just check it out.
If you look at Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, Europe, and Central Asia, you find some of the system that operates in Germany, in most of these countries, if I'm not mistaken. But in Africa, where you have just mentioned a situation where Africans are still forcing in spite of the challenges they have. Then what influenced the decision of Deutsche Welle to not come to Africa? In spite of the challenges that you already know that the African journalists are faced with?
Well, because of those challenges, we decided to be active in Africa. We've been here for decades, and so we have been in Latin America and Asia. The Middle East, obviously, has become more important in the last 10 years, and in Eastern Europe, the former Soviet Union, Central Asia, we've been very active since the fall of the Iron Curtain, since the end of the Cold War. Now, Africa for us is our most important region. If you look at the finances we put into working here, it's clearly the biggest chunk in the overall DW Academy budget. We do that because we believe that support is needed here, quite frankly. Even though I said I have so much respect for the work of the African journalists, but nobody will doubt there's still a lot to be done.
Yeah.
And there are many different fields we are working in on certain topics which are important, like as I said, election reporting or environmental reporting, conflict-sensitive reporting, but also on the basics, how to do an interview, how to do news, how to do a report, and so on and so forth. And it's a big continent. There are many countries. There are many challenges. And so there's a lot to do for us, man. It's simple as that.
Well, I've been speaking with Carsen Von Nahmen, the head of African division of Deutsche Welle Academy. What they are trying to do is to help African journalists in, developing their skill, and so that we can all become a lot more professional in our practices. But something you have to, get clear. You mentioned that you came to Africa because of some of the things you have seen, and you want to really assist, and the budget that you are pumping into Africa is more than what you are spending on other regions, other continents.
Yes.
I have this belief, and Africans generally have the belief that if a Western world is coming to give you pain, they want to take away your brain. Are you not using this as a bait to capture us into another colonialism?
No, because even if I wanted to, I wouldn't have the means to do that. Africans today are very self-confident people. Once again, I don't want to generalize, but I think all over the continent we are seeing development. We are seeing that people are taking their lives into their own hands. In some countries more, in some countries less. Some countries we work in, like Sierra Leone, Liberia, they are still recovering from decades of civil war, so it's difficult for them to come to grips with their past. But if you look at countries like Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, many others, these are major players today in the world. So we cannot come and say, this is how we do it in Germany, this is how you have to do it. Okay. This is not our approach. We go and say, look, what is it that you need? What is it that you want? What is it where you think you might have shortcomings? How can we help? And then, of course, we come from a certain tradition in Germany. We have, of course, certain beliefs of what media should do. Okay. But what we always try to see is, okay, this is where our partners want to go. And then we can say, okay, this is how we can do it. To give you one very short example of how we work, from a project I worked in Yemen, in Arabia. We did a project looking at reporting for television. And the colleagues there, they had long shots, looking at a conference of tribal leaders, and they were panning over the faces of each and everyone there. I said, guys, this is, with all due respect, this is pretty boring. Can we do it differently? Maybe a few shots here and not so much panning. And I said, yeah, but the problem is, if we leave out someone of these people, he might be angry and there might be violence because he feels disrespected. So we said, that's a very good point. We didn't know that. Okay, so now let's see how can we put together a report where the quality standards that are international quality standards, Al Jazeera is using them, it's just Deutsche Welle or BBC, it's Al Jazeera, it's everywhere. So how can we use those quality standards and make a report that looks good, but at the same time takes care of your concerns about, the different tribal leaders and how they would react if they're not there.
Their faces shown, yeah.
Exactly. So this is what we always try to do. Okay. Yeah? We don't have recipes of success which we just take from a shelf and give to people.
Don't you think the issue of, the facility is also facing most of African media organizations as not having the up-to-date, facilities in terms of equipment. Don't you think that should also be, or that's a major contribution, a major factor rather, to some of the challenges that you just mentioned now, like the other friend who wanted to, all he needs, like maybe get one camera and the other one take the cutaway of the faces of the people. Or what do you think?
Yeah, but it's not really a question of fancy equipment. I mean, this is very often what people tell us when we come and say, oh, can you buy us a new TV studio? Can you buy us some new cameras? But that's not the point. I mean, what you need, of course, for radio is a few recording machines. And you need a computer and some software. For TV, obviously, you need cameras. And you need a microphone and stuff. But apart from that, you don't need the latest, most fancy, most expensive equipment to have good journalism. What you need is well-educated, well-trained journalists. What you need is bosses that support their journalists and don't cave in because there's pressure from a local businessman or a politician. What you need is viewers, listeners who really cherish the worth, the value of independent free media. This is important. You can make a very good program even with very, very little technical means. Yeah? So I agree that you need a certain basic standard of equipment, but
that is not...
The quality of journalism is not determined by the question whether you have the latest equipment from Switzerland or from America or from Japan. That's not the point. You can make excellent journalistic programs with very, very basic equipment.
Yeah, you can make very quality journalism with the basic equipment that you have. All you need to do is to be well-read and to be educated to know what you are talking about. I've been speaking with Carsen Von Nahmen. He's the African division of DW Academy that is helping Africa to develop their skill in the area of programming and delivery of programs on radio. Well, you now say our radio, the one you have signed with Ghana presently now is our radio. When are we going to have our television?
Good question.
Because now you are sitting on on a TV. This is not radio.
I know.
Can you imagine?
And I'm afraid I cannot really answer that question. I mean, you asked me before about what is in it for us, or what are we taking from you for providing this. Well, the answer is nothing. I mean, I have a job. I mean, that is what I get out of this. And so do my colleagues, but I think we would have a job even if we would not do this. No, this is really what we do is, in effect, apart from the contribution of GIBA, of course, but what we do and what the GIZ does, the German Development Agency, is to provide these services paid for by the German taxpayer. Let's put it bluntly. And tell you the truth, my sister always asks me, now, why do I have to pay so high taxes in Germany so that you can travel to all these countries in Africa and help the people there? And I said, well, because it's right and because it's important. There is nothing in material ways we take out of this. Everything we do has to have a sponsor, basically. When we do projects which are paid for by the German government, we do projects which are paid for by the European Union, the OSCE, the United Nations, and so on. So we have sponsors for the projects. What we have to do is we have to have a project idea. We go to those sponsors and say, this is what we want to do. You have programs, for instance, the EU or UN, supporting the development goals for the promotion of development in Africa.
When is our television coming?
Yeah, I don't know. I think what we have to do is to make the Our Radio project work, to show sponsors, the one which we have right now and the ones which might be interested in this, that it works. So first thing is we want to extend that program to other regions, apart from the 5 we're focusing at now. And of course, we might then find another sponsor saying, hey, listen, radio is very important, but don't forget TV. It's the most visible media, and it's also growing. So maybe we should do something for TV as well. And if we can present them that in this cooperation with GIZ, with GIBA, this is successful, this is not wasting money, this is actually having concrete results. What we want is concrete results, that you can prove that something worked, that things have improved. And if we can show that, it will be, well, not easy, but it will be very possible to find sponsors for that. But when that will happen, I cannot promise you.
Now, what makes any project work is the continuity in the project and the consistency from maybe the parties involved. Would you have some monitoring team that, apart from the local team, you'll be working with GIBA. Apart from GIBA, would you also have a monitoring team that will monitor your activity for this period of 2 years to be sure that what you are, imparting is worth? I mean, it's exactly what you expect.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes, we do. We have an advisory council for this project, which has on it representatives of Ghanaian media, universities, and also famous, well-known journalists who know their profession, and who
in Ghana.
Here in Ghana,
okay,
who will look.
You've selected them already?
Well, I'm not quite sure if it's the final say, but we have already some provisional meetings of the advisory board, and we will, of course, then have regular meetings where they will, for instance, the selection process of which stations are to take part. This is not just Carsen Von Nahmen deciding I will take this and this one will not. There will be discussions. We have set parameters of how stations should look like to qualify.
Okay.
And then they will be selected by the advisory board. Also, the advisory board will look at the work of the project manager, which will be financed by GIZ in cooperation with us. And we will bring in also experts, trainers from Germany on management, marketing, certain fields of journalism. And again, of course, what we really want is the feedback from the stations and then mirror it in the advisory council. So if all the experts we send are no good and if what we do is crap, I mean, we will get the reaction from the advisory council there. And this is very important for us. I mean, for us, it was very important to have a strong local partner for this, GIBA, who will help us. What was important was to have the long-term approach. And what was important was that we have a certain transparency, that we get feedback from the media scene in Ghana saying what you do is good or what you do leaves room for improvement.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you have conditions. You have certain things you watch out for any radio station to qualify, to be part of it. Would you want to mention some of the expectations, some of the criteria, so that for those that are watching this program and they are in these regions, they should know that this is what is expected of them. The 5 regions that this pilot project will be taking off are the Western region, Central, Northern, Upper East, and Upper West. But Von is here. He is the head of African division of Deutsche Welle Academy. So he is going to tell us what exactly they are looking up to in some of these radio stations. Maybe briefly.
Yeah, briefly. First of all, we're looking at stations that have a certain information focus. Yeah, so we're not looking for pure music stations which might have some news every now and then. Okay. We're looking for stations actually having information programs, could be talk shows, but also magazines, reports. We'll see. What we're also looking for is stations that have a certain size. So there should be at least 5 permanent staff members plus volunteers or freelancers. Okay. So not everything breaks down because people are at the training. Yeah? So these should be serious businesses, independent media that actually have a certain weight. We'll be also looking at their motivation. So the question is, do they want change? Do they just think we will bring equipment? No, we won't. Okay. Yeah. What we will provide is knowledge and qualification, and what we also want to do is set up a network so that, for instance, reports from one station can be exchanged with others. Yeah. And so if you produce one report, you will get 4 others from other regions. Yeah. So you can also maybe in one show every week look around Ghana. Even for a local station from the north, it might be interesting to get some local reports from other stations as well. So this is what we do. This is what we can provide, and this is what we're looking for as partners.
Well, this is Trailblazers Africa. I've been speaking with Carsen Von Nahmen. He's the African head of Deutsche Welle Academy, and what they are trying to do is to ensure that they improve on the standard of production or programming of radio stations in Africa. And in Ghana, we are starting with 5 regions that I've earlier mentioned. If you are just joining us, the 5 regions are Western region, Central region, Northern, Upper East, and the Upper West. And let me quickly say, in Liberia, I read that you are into developing a new media landscape. That was in Libya, and in Liberia, investigative reporting on the extractive industry. In Sierra Leone, on the road to independence. Namibia, interview and talk show. Of course, you were also in Namibia, so maybe that was your major area. In East Africa, you are looking at children TV and the network building. In Kenya, you are talking about reinforcing African film industry. Now, what initiates this area of interest?
As I said, we have a wide range of topics we look at. The overarching aim is always to develop media, to help them to do their job as watchdogs in a democratic process, and to promote media freedom and quality standards in the media. Okay. Now, the projects or the actually workshops that you mentioned are often just parts of bigger programs. If you take the interview and talk show workshop we did in February in Windhoek for journalists from community radios, but also from different regional stations of the NBC, the Namibian Broadcasting Corporation. We look at local reporting, and this is a regional project for the whole of Southern Africa. Okay. And we have about 20 partner stations in this region, and we regularly invite them for trainings, but we also visit the stations so that we can have a look at how things are done there, where we can help, how the things that we train in the workshops are implemented. Once again, I want results. I want concrete results. I don't want to do just training for training's sake. Yeah. If you look at the children's TV program, that is a new one that we started in East Africa, which is a very, very important topic for me. We started this year only, and we will extend this program hopefully over the next 2 years also to other African countries, because we believe it's very important to do programs that encourage young people to learn. We cannot replace the proper schools, obviously. Yeah. But I can only judge from my own experience. When I was a kid, I liked to watch programs like Sesame Street and other German formats, where the basic underlying tone was ask. Yeah? It was encouraging young people to ask and to inquire and to find out and investigate and to learn more. And I think this is very important today, that children get this kind of spirit. And this is what we try to support there. We're working with 3 stations in Uganda, in Tanzania, and in Kenya, and both public and private. And also there we're trying to create a network. So one station is looking at programs for the very young, another one is looking at another age group, and the third one at a third age group. And they will also exchange those programs. So once again, there's a concrete result. You produce one magazine, but you have 3 programs which you can broadcast on your channels. And this is what we do, and we have excellent experts on this in Germany. We have great children's TV programs in Germany, and we can use that expertise there. But once again, the formats are developed by our local colleagues. We are just assisting them. Yeah? We're not just transferring a German show to Africa. That won't work. Yeah, it has to be African formats. Programs, and this is what we do. So in all these things that you're looking at, there's always like a bigger project going on. If we do conflict-sensitive reporting, it's a regional project for the Great Lakes region, for instance, where we try to help journalists to deal with the very violent past and sometimes present, if you look at the Congo today. And we try to help them to do their job under these very, very difficult circumstances.
Now, I try to study every statement and that you are making. The other time you mentioned the word objective, that we must be objective in our reports and what have you. There's this belief that the Western media usually present the other side of Africa. I don't know, maybe you want to react to that, that the only time we enjoy, so much report from some of the Western world media is when there is war in Africa, when there is crisis. Are you saying that there are no good things that the Western media can also project to the rest of the world? Or you want to go by what we believe, what we learn in school, that is only bad stories that makes news?
Not only bad stories, but unfortunately, bad news is good news. We all know that. I mean, if things go as normal, everything's fine, is something that nobody's interested in. But if there was an accident, and 5 people died, and it happened next to my doorstep, I'm interested in that, even though it's bad news. I mean, that's unfortunately the logic of media to some extent. First of all, I have to admit that Western media is not perfect, and of course we as Westerners, sometimes violate the standards of objectivity. Not because of because we want to, or because there's an evil purpose behind it, but because also Europeans are humans who make mistakes. And to be honest, people in the West, in Europe, know very little about Africa. So all they get is the bad news that are coming. It has changed, in all fairness to the colleagues, it has changed. If I look at, for instance, some programs we do at Deutsche Welle, what the BBC does, CNN with their programs inside Africa, where they actually look at positive developments in the area. It is changing, and there's a growing consciousness in the West, in Europe, in Germany, that Africa is not a dark or lost continent, but it's actually a very diverse continent with some countries where the situation is really bad. If you look at Somalia today, I'm sorry, it is bad. There's no way doubting it. That. But there are other countries which are the opposite, which have for years had constant growth in the economic sphere. Look at Ghana. Fine. Also, you have very positive development in the field of politics. There are far, far less dictatorships in Africa today than there were 20 years ago. So, of course, there are positive developments, and I think the Western media is trying to also reflect that in its reporting. The problem is, unfortunately, also if you look at Germany, there is less and less money for the journalists. So whereas 20, 30 years ago, journalists could actually travel a lot to look at things, they had 1 week for a story. These days, all the journalists are in a rush. They have to fill programs, they have to fill newspapers. And unfortunately, even though there are some programs which are looking at Africa in a more objective way, mostly people are just rushed, and they look at the agency material, oh, another war in Africa, okay, we put this here. There is little time to just go to Ghana for 2 weeks and do proper research on what's going on, and that's the problem. It's not that there's an evil purpose, there's an agenda. There's no agenda to portray Africa in a bad light. It's simply you call it incompetence or ignorance.
A way of violating the standard of objectivity.
Well, what you always should try, let me say this, and because you mentioned the question of objectivity in the beginning of the program. Of course, there is no total objectivity, because every person, even a journalist who's trying to do his best to cover a story objectively, has its own experiences, has his own prejudices, has his view on the world. But objectivity in this case doesn't mean that there is one truth which has to be found. There is no one truth. There are always several views on the truth.
Several angles.
Several angles. But what we can try to do is to be as objective as possible, to be fair, to be balanced, and to give different views.
Let's be fair.
Let's be fair. I can live with that. We say fair, balanced. I can live with that.
Yeah. Now, let's go back to the training. At the end of the training, would you be taking some of the trainees to collaborate with some of your people, maybe some of the staff of Deutsche Welle, in producing programs to actually see, how best they have, taken what you have imparted in them?
Well, it's not the main focus of the project. The project is to improve reporting here. And to support our partners at GIBA and the partner stations that we select here. What we do sometimes at Deutsche Welle, both for radio and TV, is to do so-called co-productions. And we are doing this on a regular basis, but we're looking at really some individual, very good journalists that we pick for this. We have a big project going on called African Stories, which is co-productions for TV, where we work in 30 countries, with TV stations there, and we invite people for training, and the best people we choose for these co-productions. So in the end, there will be about 50 reports, 30 of those coming out of the trainings, and the other 20 coming from the co-productions. And the co-productions will be both broadcast on DWTV and on the partner stations, the 30 partner stations participating. So there will be training, but there will also be co-production. It will be stories which are done to, let's say, European technical quality standards, but it will be stories done from an African perspective, because knowing that very often the Western coverage of Africa is not really good, to be honest, we want to have more of this. We want to see the world, and Africa in particular, through African eyes as well, to understand it better. So this we do, and then we will also take the very best of those people to Germany. And we will try to bring them together with German high-ranking politicians, ministers, members of parliament, business leaders, journalists, and also to have an exchange, so to also give them the chance to discuss mutual perceptions between Africa and Germany.
Wow, that's a very good one, and I must say that Africans are very ready to do that. Now, I was discussing with somebody about Deutsche Welle, and the response the person gave me is that, oh, DW, I only know them on TV. I've not heard much about their radio. So please, you are the head of African division. Let my viewers and those who don't think that who don't know that Deutsche Welle has radio stations too, let them know, so that it wouldn't be only me that will have the knowledge that you have some radio stations.
Well, I hope that some people know us. Indeed, we have, of course, an English program which broadcasts via satellite, and we also try to find, or we have actually, rebroadcasting partners in Ghana and other countries, which then take at least some parts of our programs and rebroadcast them as part of their program. So these are two main distribution channels for us, or three. You have the internet, and new media, you have satellite, and you have also redistribution partners or rebroadcasting partners. We also used to broadcast in shortwave, but we almost completely skipped that. We still do it for some of the African language services that we still have. We have a Hausa service, we have a Kiswahili service, and we have a very successful Amharic service, which is still listened to by a large share of the population in Eritrea and Ethiopia, if those governments don't block receptions, as they sometimes do, because they don't like what we tell the people. So we do that, and we have in all 30 language services. Due to budget restraints, we had unfortunately to cut down some of the coverage, but we still have 30 language services, and Africa clearly is one of our main focuses. But as you know, TV rules in the modern time in many ways, except for local coverage, obviously, where people still relate to what's going on. TV is very important. TV is very expensive, so a lot of our money goes into TV. But even there, we have English, German, Spanish, and Arabic services, which are running 24 hours a day.
Now, you are in Benin, Ghana, Mali, Mozambique, South Africa, Tanzania, Zambia, the Indian Ocean coast of East Africa, and the Francophone countries of West Africa. When are you going to cover the rest of Africa, like Nigeria, like Cameroon, and some other parts of Africa?
Well, it's always a question. I mean, I'd like to be everywhere, but also our resources are limited. So the question is whether you just spread it everywhere and do a little bit everywhere, or if you actually focus on some countries. I think to look at your examples, we did projects also this year in Nigeria and Cameroon, for example. In Nigeria, we did a media dialogue which brought together German journalists and Nigerian journalists looking at that very topic of how the Western media portrays Africa, how Africa sees Europe and Germany. Very interesting discussions going on there in Abuja. We had a project in Cameroon where we trained radio journalists, but these are minor highlights. What I want to do more is actually what we do now in Ghana. Big projects, long-term projects, which don't just do a workshop here and there, but actually support the partner stations through consultancy and ongoing qualification measures. Because then you have real results. Once again, for me, to have concrete results, to have results I can prove also to my sponsors are very important. So we will always have, let's say, certain interesting singular projects where it's just one workshop on a certain topic because somebody asked. But the focus will be more on big projects like children's TV, like the regional project on local reporting in Southern Africa, like our radio here in Ghana. This will be the way forward for us. And yeah, you have to make a selection. So people in Nigeria ask me, why are you doing this big project in Ghana? And we say, well, in a way, they were first. We discussed things, and with our partners at GIBA, GIBA also convinced us with the very strong commitment to this project. And we said, okay, let's do it. So we do this here, and maybe if we find similar partners in Nigeria or other countries, we can do something similar there. My problem is, I'm not a millionaire or not a billionaire, so whatever I do, I have to find someone who pays for it.
Yeah. Whatever he does, he has to look for someone that will pay for it. So please, I want to call on other people to support what Deutsche Welle is doing. I've been speaking with Carsen Von Nahmen. He is the head of African division of Deutsche Welle Academy. Now, you've been in Africa for how many years now that you've been coming to Africa?
Oh, 20 years, I'd say.
20 years. Yeah. Then you should get a wife in Africa.
Well, let me say, my wife is suspecting that something like that is going on, but no, it's not. My wife also works for Deutsche Welle. She's the bureau chief of Deutsche Welle in Moscow. So it's a bit of a hassle right now. I'm traveling a lot, commuting in this triangle between Moscow, our headquarters in Bonn, and Africa. No, but I love it. I love to be here. I've done different things as well. I worked in the Middle East. I worked in the former Soviet Union. But since coming to Africa for the first time in 1991, I've always come back. As you said, I worked in Namibia for 2 years, working for the German service of the NBC, because they have a small...
That's the Namibia Broadcasting
Corporation. Yeah, they have a small German minority there, and so this small broadcaster, or this NBC, has a small language service which is broadcasting for them, so I worked there.
What was your experience like working with them?
Well, let me tell you a little story. When I came there, I was immediately put, because they are very short of people, in charge of the football broadcasting, because there was at that time, the first national game or international game of Namibia in football against, was it Kenya? No, it was Botswana. Against Botswana was going on. So I had 5 days to prepare for this. There was no archive, there was no things I could relate to. And we did it, and it was lots of fun. The game started 3 hours late because the referee from Angola had missed his plane, and then he was held up in customs, and so we had to bridge the 3 hours, which we didn't expect.
With a lot of fillers.
With a lot of fillers, music, and talks, and interviews with the audience. So this was my first journalistic experience with Africa. And I loved it, because it made me be spontaneous, it made me grow, to live up to the challenge.
To be creative.
To be creative. It was fantastic. I mean, to be fair, this could have happened in a European country as well. But the reaction would have been different. In Europe, there would have been 15 people supporting me, filling the gaps, and some other programs would be put in. But here it was different. It was just me and my colleague, the other presenter, and the guy in the studio. And the three of us then somehow had to save the situation, and we did as best as we could. So that's what I loved about it. And that went on. And there are challenges. Dealing, for instance, with the news, I had to fight with some of the news editors, in this case, who were not there because they were very capable, but because they obviously were close to the ruling party. So the English news bulletins I got basically were difficult, because some things like, where did it happen? What was the source? Didn't exist, so I always had to call them, and I think they hated me for that. Is this German guy again who's trying to... but it was, in a way, it was fun, you know?
Yeah.
It was fun to work with that and to live up to the challenge.
Well, I must tell you that this is a very serious one that I'm having with Carsen Von Nahmen today, because we are looking at several issues that borders on the practice of journalism in Africa, but they are trying to come to, or they have come to Africa to assist, radio presenters, radio workers to improve in their skill, in their knowledge, in their various jobs. Maybe I just have 2 more questions so that I can allow you to go, because I know maybe your wife is missing you now.
I hope she is.
Yeah. Now let's look at the issue of gatekeeping in stories. How is it in the Western world compared to your experience in Namibia?
Well, I wouldn't say that there are no problems in the Western world, but there are less problems. Of course, also there we have instances, take France, where the President Sarkozy has a very close relationship to people who own a number of media organizations. And there were instances where critical reporting of Sarkozy resulted in problems for the journalists. But at least, if this happens in Europe, there's a public outrage about it, and politicians or powerful businessmen think twice before doing that. In Germany, we have a system where the public service broadcasting is governed by not just by political parties, but also by representatives of churches or NGOs and so on. There's a governing board there. And in theory, they should be also more or less neutral. But of course, sometimes there are constellations when one party or conservative people or maybe left-leaning people have a majority, and they try to influence like who is becoming the editor-in-chief, who is becoming the director-general. That does happen, but when it happens, once again, there's a public discussion about it, and it happens on a level which is more or less acceptable. In Africa, there's a much bigger program because there are less checks and balances. People like powerful political leaders, powerful businessmen can do as they please because there's no one checking them. There's no one putting them in their place.
In most cases, it's the EU pays the piper.
Yes, and that's true. And I mean, and once again, this can happen. I worked for a local newspaper in Germany where it was very difficult to criticize the biggest employer in town because that biggest employer in town also was the biggest buyer of advertisement space in the newspaper.
Wow.
So, but once again, there's a certain code of conduct. There's and also the journalists and that's the important thing. The managers would say, okay, this will create trouble, but we are a newspaper, so we will do it. But be sure you're right. Don't do anything stupid.
All right.
But you need, that's my experience, you need bosses like that. You need journalists to have this pride in their profession. And this sometimes happens in Africa, but sometimes it's lacking.
Well, finally, I'd like to ask you, which of the food, of African food, do you like best? Do I say Ghana food?
Yeah, Ghana food. To be honest, let me think. Fish is definitely something I like. I mean, the different things that you have. Yesterday I had excellent goat and chicken meat with this, I don't know what you call this, these spices, these light red spices. I mean, it burned off my tongue, but it was fantastic.
Oh, you haven't eaten banku?
No, I haven't.
So I think I should give you banku and pepper before you leave.
Okay, next time I come early next year, I'll definitely have that.
Well, it's quite interesting. I'll be speaking with Carsen Von Nahmen, the head of African division of Deutsche Welle Academy. It's nice having you on the program.
Well, anytime. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much for coming.
Okay.
I wish you a safe journey back home.
Thank you very much.
Well, the program has been Trailblazers Africa. I have been working with a lot of people in the house. I guess you've had a wonderful moment this Saturday. Don't forget that the program is still is repeated on Monday at 3 p.m. So if you're missing today or you're just coming in and you are missing a large part of the program, don't worry. On Monday, just stay glued with your television at 3 p.m. on Crystal TV. My name is Moses Owopade. I'll see you again next week, God's willing, on this program. And by then, we'll be talking another topic. Bye-bye.